WADR, promoting dialogue. It's May Day in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Cotonou. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Front for the Defense of Democracy and the Republic, FDR, becomes latest political movement in Senegal's landscape.
The time has come for the opposition to organize, to be present, to take action on the ground, and to engage in open debates.
Former Ivorian leader Laurent Gbagbo launches presidential mobilization tour. Ghana's President Mahama announces a ban on first-class travel for government appointees.
I've asked the Chief of Staff to write to all government appointees that I've imposed a ban on non-essential travel forthwith to cut down expenditure. Any travel that is deemed essential and necessary must be cleared first with the Office of the Chief of Staff.
And ahead of World Radio Day, WADR partners African Union of Broadcasting for a media summit on climate change. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast, and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. We begin right here in Senegal, where a new political movement has entered the country's landscape. Known as the Front for the Defense of Democracy and the Republic, FDR, it was officially launched on Sunday by opposition figures, including Halifa Sallah, Anta Babakar Ngom, and Abdou Mbow, among others. The alliance focused on the November legislative elections as well as the current political and judicial affairs of Senegal. Francis Boniface reports.
The Front for the Defense of Democracy and the Republic, FDR, unites opposition members, former presidential candidates, deputies, and former ministers. The alliance aims to promote critical debate and monitor the governance of the ruling PASTEF party. Halifa Sallah, leader of the Tahaou Senegal movement and a founding member of the FDR, emphasized the importance of political accountability.
The time has come for the opposition to organize, to be present, to take action on the ground, and to engage in open debates. The Front for the Defense of Democracy and the Republic stands as a crucial movement in this fight. It carries real significance.
Meanwhile, Anta Babakar, deputy in the National Assembly, denounced the arrest of government critics, calling for greater political freedom.
The rise of PASTEF to power has disrupted Senegal's long-standing tradition of democratic consolidation, which has always been built on consensual political rules. The November 2024 legislative elections were marred by a lack of transparency, including the concealment of the election date, violent crackdowns, and arbitrary arrests, all orchestrated to secure a false parliamentary majority. Beyond electoral controversies, the PASTEF administration is increasingly accused of revenge politics, seeking to erode hard-won democratic freedoms achieved through decades of struggle by the Senegalese people.
The FDR also calls for political consultations to evaluate last year's presidential and legislative elections and push for a revision of the Electoral Code.
Francis Boniface with that report. Meanwhile, with less than 9 months until Cote d'Ivoire's presidential election, former President Laurent Gbagbo, the official candidate of the African People's Party of Cote d'Ivoire, has launched a nationwide mobilization tour called Kokoko. Over the weekend, Gbagbo held a rally in Makori residential neighborhood, addressing a massive crowd at a local sports ground. He spoke on key national issues and the upcoming election. Christopher Atiche reports.
For nearly an hour, Laurent Gbagbo addressed his supporters, touching on several topics. He emphasized that certain conditions must be met to ensure a peaceful presidential election in October.
Elections must be organized by a neutral and independent body, made up of impartial individuals. The electoral rolls should include only Ivorian citizens, yet manipulation of voter lists remains widespread. There are instances where a single woman is listed as the mother of 500 children children on the electoral register, a blatant and shameful fraud. To ensure a fair and transparent election, the voter list must be thoroughly cleaned of ineligible names before the polls.
He also spoke about justice in Ivory Coast, particularly the 20-year prison sentences handed down to several political figures.
People must be free to express opposing views without fear of repression. However, those who voice concrete ideas are often silenced or prosecuted. The prosecutor routinely demands harsh sentences, including life imprisonment or 20-year jail terms. It feels as if everyone is condemned to 20 years in prison. In Côte d'Ivoire, sentences of 20 years or more have become disturbingly common.
Notably, Wadr is the PPACI's official candidate for the October 25 election. He is not listed on the electoral roll due to a criminal conviction by the Ivorian justice system, rendering him ineligible for now.
Abidjan correspondent Abin Adet's report, voiced by Christopher Aticho. Gambian President Adama Barrow has described ECOWAS's recent approval of a special tribunal for the Gambia as a remarkable step. According to the Gambian leader, the tribunal, which will prosecute human rights violations committed during the former President Yahya Jammeh's regime, underscores that impunity will not be tolerated. Meanwhile, the Gambia Bar Association has called on the government to act swiftly on the approval and ensure justice for victims. Sankule Janko has more in this report.
Speaking at the opening ceremony of the 2025 Legal Year in Banjul, President Adama Barrow reiterated his government's commitment to providing justice for victims of the Jammeh regime and emphasized the significance of the ECOWAS approval for a special tribunal.
The recent approval by the Economic Community of West African States ECOWAS Authority of heads of state and government to establish a special tribunal is another remarkable achievement. The tribunal will investigate and prosecute gross human rights violations and international crimes committed during the previous regime, running from July 1994 through to January 2017.
President Barrow further stated that the decision is meant to provide justice for victims while sending a signal impunity will not be condoned in the Gambia.
This decision is to make sure that there is justice for the victims and survivors of the human rights abuses committed during that period. It is meant to send a strong message that impunity will not be condoned on our shores.
Meanwhile, the president of the Gambia Bar Association, Nene MC Cham, while appalling the government's significant efforts in securing ECOWAS approval for the establishment of a special tribunal, urged the authorities to expedite the process.
We encourage the government to follow the process with urgency to ensure that the rule of law prevails this time by bringing accountability and justice. When this happens, true peace and reconciliation will inevitably flow.
President Barrow also stated that the decision to establish a special prosecutor's office and a special tribunal is a testament to his government's commitment to addressing past injustices with transparency and integrity. For Newslink West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Sankule Janko reporting from Banjul.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We cross over to Ghana, where President John Dramani Mahama has announced a ban on first-class travel for government appointees, emphasizing that his government will be guided by modesty and respect for the Ghanaian people. Speaking at the swearing-in ceremony for ministers at the Jubilee House during the weekend, President Mahama stated that he has directed the Chief of Staff to formally notify ministers and government officials about an immediate restriction on non-essential travel to cut down government spending.
I have no doubt that all of you are poised to work tirelessly to improve the lot of Ghanaians in your respective sector based on your experience and your competence. I must, however, remind you of the same caution I sounded to your colleagues who have already taken office, that the hallmark of this government will be modesty and respect for the Ghanaian people. There will be no room for arrogance and pomposity in this government. The resources that you'll be working with belong to the Ghanaian people who put us in office. Those resources are not to be wasted on opulence and extravagance. I've asked the Chief of Staff to write to all government appointees that have imposed a ban on non-essential travel forthwith to cut down expenditure. Any travel that is deemed essential and necessary must be cleared first with the Office of the Chief of Staff, and such travels will have to be undertaken in modesty, no first class.
Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama. Now into the Sahel region, at least 25 civilians, including foreign nationals, were killed and 13 others injured in an ambush on a civilian convoy between Gao and Ansongo near Kobe in northern Mali. The attack occurred during the weekend and was confirmed by the Malian armed forces in a statement on Saturday evening. Echiatis reports.
According to the military, the civilian convoy was ambushed by armed militants near Intahaka gold mine in the Gao region, deliberately targeting passengers as they retreated. Despite the rapid response of Malian forces, 3 vehicles were hit, resulting in casualties, including young foreign gold miners. In response, FAMA launched a search operation, recovering 19 militant bodies and capturing 4 injured fighters. Several weapons and combat equipment were also seized. Medical sources confirmed that many of the victims were Nigerian gold miners, with 4 of the injured in critical condition. Some casualties were identified as members of the Ganda Izo self-defense group. The number of military personnel killed remains unknown as their bodies were taken directly to a military base. The attack caused significant property damage with at least 3 minibuses, 2 local trucks, and a 10-ton cargo vehicle set on fire. Northern and central Mali continue to face frequent ambushes and IED attacks as armed groups exploit the country's ongoing instability. Despite the presence of regional and international forces, security challenges have persisted since 2012.
Echiatisu reporting there ahead of World Radio Day. Experts are exploring the medium's extensive reach and ability to bridge digital divides and engage diverse audiences on climate-related issues. This 2-day event, which will take place on February 13th and 14th, will be held in Dakar, the Senegalese capital. Its theme is Reaching the Last Mile, Radio for Climate Action. Imo Edit reports.
The summit will focus on using radio as a key tool in climate communication and disaster preparedness. Radio remains among the most accessible and resilient media platforms, especially in Africa's rural and undeserved communities. While digital media has revolutionized information dissemination, internet access remains a challenge in many areas. The summit will explore how radio can fill this gap, providing timely and localized climate information to millions. Key topics on the agenda include the role of community radio in disaster preparedness, indigenous knowledge and climate resilience, and policy advocacy for a just energy transition. Experts will also discuss best practices for mobilizing public participation in climate initiatives and integrating climate-focused content into radio programming. AUB, the largest professional broadcasting organization in Africa, represents over 80 public and private radio and television stations. The summit, which is in partnership with West Africa Democracy Radio, will bring together media professionals, community radio journalists, civil society organizations, and researchers to develop strategies for effective climate communication through radio. With climate change posing an urgent global challenge, the summit aims to ensure that radio continues to play a pivotal role in raising awareness, empowering communities, and driving meaningful climate action across Africa.
Imo edified that report. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Front for the Defense of Democracy and the Republic, FDR, becomes latest political movement in Senegal's landscape. Former Ivorian leader Laurent Gbagbo launches presidential mobilization tour. Ghana's President Mahama announces a ban on first-class travel for government appointees. Ahead of World Radio Day, WADR partners with African Union of Broadcasting for a media summit on climate change. We also have a press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for sticking with us. As a reminder, we are streaming live on YouTube at WADR News and on Facebook, WADR English Service. The government of Liberia has launched the National Resource Center for Persons with Disabilities and the Group of 77 Residents. The groundbreaking marks the start of a $5 million project designed to create a comprehensive support system for disabled people. Led by Second Lady Stephanie Dancon, the first phase would include a residential facility for 200 members of the Group of 77, a well-equipped high school focused on quality education. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Ibrahim Parker reports.
As the event unfolded, the atmosphere was filled with joy and hope, reflecting the dreams of many who have long awaited such support. Community members and advocates gathered to witness this historic moment, their faces cheerful with excitement. For many, this center represents not just a building, but a beacon of hope for a more inclusive future. In his remarks, President Joseph Boakai emphasized the government's commitment to enhancing the lives of persons living with disabilities.
That's why we talk about managing our resources and the people. We are stewards, the responsibility. We are held accountable when we do not.
For Liberia's Vice President Jeremiah Cohn, the project, if completed, will not only cater to people living with disabilities, but as well residents of nearby communities as a dawn of a new day.
Those who can help children from parents who are disabled, let's do it because you never know their future. You are disabled, but you are mentally alive.
In a joyful mood, Second Lady Stephanie Dancon expressed her heartfelt gratitude to the government of Liberia and its development partners.
We are creating movement for empowerment, inclusion, and dignity for those who have often been left on the margin of society.
The National Resource Center for Persons with Disabilities is not just a project, but a promise of a brighter future where inclusivity and empowerment are no longer aspirations but realities for all Liberians. For the West Africa Democracy Radio, Ibrahim Parker reporting from Monrovia.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, let's travel now to the Nigerian capital, Abuja, where Usma Umar on standby with the press review.
We begin with the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with this story. 70,000 naira minimum wage. State salaries rise by 90% to 3.8 trillion naira. A couple of other stories. Rivers community deserted as cultists kill 19 residents. We move from the Punch newspaper now to the Vanguard newspaper that is leading with this story. Japa underfunding, inefficiency undermining Nigeria's public hospitals. Japa, of course, is the new term used for irregular migration, that is Nigerians leaving Nigeria for other places. And very quickly, take a look at the Nation newspaper. Court okays FCCPC's power in telecom regulation. FCCPC means Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission is now also seeking some powers to be able to regulate telecoms in Nigeria. Troops destroy bandit camps in Zamfara, kill 44. It's another news story that is trending on the front page of the Nation newspaper. We now take a look at the Daily Post, and the Daily Post is leading with this story. Dubai court slams Nigerian billionaire jail term over financial crime. And a couple of other stories on the front page of a Daily Post have it that Nigeria police clears air on reported return of SARS. SARS means Special Anti-Robbery Squad. And we go to the This Day newspaper, which is going to be our last paper for consideration today. And it is leading with this story, saying Katsina elders threaten to undermine Tinubu's re-election in 2027. And finally, Tinubu's leadership style attracting opposition politicians, says a lawmaker. And that's the much we have for you on this segment of Press Review as I hand you back to the studios.
Usma Umar there with the Press Review.
Politics
Analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
This segment of Newslink is about Senegal, where a new political movement has entered the country's landscape. Known as the Front for the Defense of Democracy and the Republic, FDR, it was officially launched on Sunday by opposition figures including Halifa Sallah, Anta Babacar Ngom, and Abdou Mbow, among others. Our guest is Professor Golgi Dieng, a Senegalese political analyst who speaks with WADR about the implication of this new opposition alliance.
I believe that that movement should have been set up by the population themselves, by the people of Senegal itself. If the intention of the movement is to defend democracy and to defend the republic, I believe that it must be the role of every single Senegalese citizen. So I definitely appreciate that, because it is, I believe, in the interest of Senegal, defending the republic and defending the democracy.
As part of the objectives of this opposition alliance, is among other things to promote critical debate and monitor the governance of the ruling PASTEF party, while emphasizing the importance of political accountability. How would you describe these objectives?
I think those objectives must be the objective of any normal society, of any normal government. Accountability is absolutely normal. Respect for democracy is absolutely important. Respect for the republic is absolutely important. So I do believe that if those objectives are really the ones they have really announced, I do agree to those objectives, because they are in the interests of the population of Senegal, because we cannot live in a country without rules, and without the rules of the country respected, the democracy must be respected, the republic must be respected, but it must be respected not only by the citizens, but those who have the power and those who are seeking to get the power.
Now, there were opposition coalitions and alliances during the last November parliamentary elections in Senegal. Yet the ruling coalition, the PASTEF party, won majority seats. How does this new opposition alliance make any difference?
Well, in politics, things can change overnight. And I believe that there is a difference between what Senegal was 2 months ago, 9 months ago, and what it is today. Because many things have happened in the meantime, and then that must have some consequences on the way people appreciate the ruling party and the way in which the people, the population, appreciate the leaders. Have they lived up to their expectations? Those are the questions we have got to ponder over and see whether those who have been controlling the power for 9 months now, 10 months, if they have really met the expectations of the people, the population who elected them as president and who elected them as the majority in parliament. So it is only after we have answered those questions that we could say whether there is a difference between the opposition in last March, and even during the last election.
Does the establishment of this opposition alliance threaten the government of President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, by extension the ruling PASTEF party?
Well, I don't know what can happen. We are in politics. Anything can happen. All depends on the situation prevailing in the country. The economic situation especially. Those who have been elected, have they met the expectations of the people? If they have, fair enough. If they haven't, it is clear that the opposition leaders will have the opportunity to garner something based on the fact that the populations are not satisfied.
Professor Golgi Dieng is a Senegalese political analyst. And here is Sankle Janko with sports.
Hello out there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The Ghana Football Association GFA has held a meeting with leadership of supporters groups of the Premier League clubs to discuss the roles at match venues, the safety and security protocols, and also receive their inputs. This meeting was prompted by the tragic incident that occurred at Prof. Nana Koromansa Park at Nostra, where Asante Kotoko supporter Francis Nana Yao Frimpong has lost his life during a match between Nusroman FC and Asante Kotoko, according to GFA official website. The meeting, chaired by General Secretary Prosper Harrison Addo, aimed to remind supporters of their crucial role in promoting safety and security in stadiums among each other. At the meeting, each supporter group gave their feedback and suggestions to enhance the safety and security of protocols. The GFA reports key discussion areas included police protection for supporters groups during their travel at the stadium and segregation of home and away fans. The GFA also updated the groups on actions taken to find justice for Francis Nanaya Frimpong, and that the GFA is treating the death as a criminal offence, so it is fully in the hands of the police service. The GFA and supporters groups resolved to meet periodically to discuss and exchange ideas to further enhance safety at match venues, according to GFA. And Rivers United have ended their 5-game winless streak following a 1-0 win against Lobby Stars. A late goal by Timothy Zakaria has ended a dry season for Rivers United, who have previously gone 5 matches without a win, according to VillageSquire.com. The victory puts the former Nigerian champions third ahead of Remo Stars. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Sheikh Njai for the technical support. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship gender program, that's health program, World Body. I am Augustine Cully. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.